Oh, back at it again. The state of football here each and every weekday, 9 a.m. Eastern. Today is Wednesday, September 16th. This is part 33 here as we keep it moving and grooving, breaking down the world of football, the hot topics, latest debates, heavy hitters from the industry. Today, I'm joined by, of course, my co host each and every day down there in New Orleans, John Murphy. And we have Dr. David Turner from Maverick Sports Consulting here. We'll dive into some college football. We were awaiting the Big Ten decision. Still has not come down the wire. We'll dive into that. Looks like the Pac-12 could still be more of a spring season. And of course, we've got a lot of NFL happenings around the league, the aftermath from week one. And we'll start off in Chicago, where Allen Robinson, the wide receiver, yesterday caused a little bit of a stir. First, I saw people, Bears fans. It's incredible how much attention gets paid to this kind of stuff. But somebody took it upon themselves to look at Allen Robinson's Twitter and realize that, hey, he's deleted everything that's Bears related. Any mention of the Bears, any tweets of the Bears. He actually took the time to scrub his social media, erase anything from the Bears. A couple hours later, you hear, oh, Allen Robinson wants a trade. Okay, so we start connecting the dots. He deletes everything from his social media. Trade request comes down the wire. Oh, wait a second. His agent comes out just a couple hours after that and says, no. He doesn't want a trade request. So, we're trying to read the tea leaves here. He's in the last year of his deal. I think his base salary is $10 million. Obviously, he's seeing the big money going around the league. DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen, even getting $20 million a year. This is the Bears' top receiver. John, we've got two great personnel people that have excellent perspective. I'll start off with John Murphy, Vice President of Player Personnel for the Toronto Argonauts. I mean, as an executive, John, you're the GM of the Bears. Obviously, he's got more dialogue and communication of what's going on, the true story with the agent, but from a public damage control kind of standpoint and even locker room control, I mean, how do you kind of navigate a situation like this?
I mean, I think this is another one, where a lot of times I think you have to defer to it being, where it emanated from, and if players are going to have social media, I mean, obviously everybody, uses it for different reasons and different purposes. They have to be aware that if you're going to go and add a bunch of things, people are going to put eyes on it. If you're going to delete a bunch of things, people are going to put eyes on it. So if your course of action, was to go do that, whether you wanted the attention, for it or not, whether you wanted people to think that meant you were unhappy or, or planning to not be around long term, by doing that, well, you drew a response. So, I mean, my question to, the agent and then subsequently the player would be, well, so what attention were you looking for if you do that? What expectation did you have? Is this just a way to get, some attention? Is this just a way to drive this subject, to the mainstream media and have these questions get asked? And then I think at the end of the day, the finger pointing of, well, he got more money, so I should, or where you now rank amongst, the receivers in that group. You got paid a little earlier than maybe you would have, when you move from one team to another. And now you're in the middle of the bunch. I think we mentioned it a week or two ago when Ryan Kelly got signed, and he's now the highest paid center. And his answer to that was, yeah, until the next group of guys come along, and then, I'll be wherever I'm at. I'm just happy for the contract that I got and earned, and appreciative that the Colts invested in me. And, it's great to be the highest paid center for a day or two, and then moves on. So, you can see how certain people handle that. At the end of the day, you clearly know there was some intention on the part of either Allen Robinson, people involved with Allen Robinson, or the people of the people of the people involved with Allen Robinson, who wanted a message out there. Well, guess what? Now it's out there, and you have to deal with it publicly, but also privately. And I'm never going to be one to think that public, by either side, not with the clubs and not by the players. Negotiating in public gets you nowhere except for right where they're at, which is having to talk about that as much or more than being 1-0. And oh, by the way, Anthony Miller being the one that had you at 1-0. So be careful, because there's always Jacksonville.
Yeah.
There's always Jacksonville.
Well, listen, this is not a young player, David. This is a veteran guy, 27 years old. So he knows what he's doing, right? To me, as we kind of talked through this, it sounds like the player was disgruntled, took to social media, made a stink about it, and the agent swoops in and says, whoa, wait, what are you doing? Let's do some damage control here. Obviously, something's not right behind the scenes. And, of course, David Turner, executive at Edmonton Eskimos, three-time back-to-back Arizona Rattlers executive championship, and a ton of experience at the NFL level. So what do you make of this situation? How do you kind of take it from the top in a decision-making process in terms of the trickle-down effect? Like John said, the focus of the team should be this great come-from-behind victory, out of the gates, 1-0, let's build on that momentum. Now you've got your star player saying, hey, show me the money. Isn't this something that should have been done in the offseason?
Well, I got a little bit of a different approach on this one, Rick, because if he's this unhappy, I should know about it before. And if I'm the GM, if I'm Ryan Pace and it takes a player to go to Twitter to catch my attention, then what am I doing in my building? What are my coaches doing? Why is there nobody? Why is the equipment guy or the trainer? This guy's obviously complaining somewhere and to somebody. Where's my leadership in my locker room? Why isn't somebody in my office saying, hey, by the way, Alan's really upset. He needs to, you need to sit down and talk to him. You need to have a heart-to-heart and kind of go through the process with him and his agent maybe. And again, like you said, during training camp, this should be the conversation. If he's this unhappy, bring him into the fold, make him feel appreciated, and talk to him. But like John said, this guy got paid early, and now all this money's coming to the table. It doesn't mean you deserve more. You agreed to a contract that you signed your name to in the process, was it 4 or 5 years ago, and now you're at the tail end of your deal. And yeah, we want to pay you going forward. We want you to feel appreciated, but at the same time, there's a salary cap, and we can't rush to every decision and go give new money to everybody just because you see somebody else get more than you, and that's the basis of this business. I mean, Gettleman taught me you can't pay everybody in a salary cap business, and decisions are hard. So you have to really figure out where you're going to budget your money, how it's going to go down. And with that said, for Alan to go to Twitter and to be a petulant child by deleting all his Bears tweets and then having his parent come in and have his agent having to damage control it. It's like you said, he's not a 22-year-old or a 21-year-old kid. He's 27. He should know the game by now. He should be a professional enough to know, hey, if I got a problem, let me walk in the GM's office or ask for a meeting, or talk with the GM and the head coach and sort this out. And, but again, as a player, you have to understand, as any man or woman in business, when you sign your name to a contract, you're signing your name to that contract and that term and the terms that are confined in that contract. You don't get to renegotiate just because you hear somebody else got more money and it's 4 years later. I mean, his deal when it struck was a really good deal. It made headlines. It was something that people were like, wow, this guy got paid. But now it's, at the tail end, and that's what you agreed to. And again, I don't feel that Ryan Pace and the Bears don't want him around. I think they do. But in this situation, it might just take some patience to get everything worked out. And if this was the first time Ryan Pace heard of this, then how's this building set up? Seriously, there should be a path of communication to the GM's office, as I think John would agree, of information needs to come upstairs so we can nip these things in the bud before it gets public, before it gets out into the world of Twitterverse or anywhere else, and try to manage it at that point. I mean, I'll be shocked if this was the first he heard of it. Now, it might have been the process that Allen's not happy with, like it's not moving fast enough. Maybe that's what comes out of the Bears building in the next couple of days. But if this is the first the Bears are hearing of it at the management level, then the agent and the player are doing a very bad job of trying to keep relationships with the Bears in good faith. And as a 27-year-old receiver, you got to be careful. Like John said, there's always Jacksonville. I mean, right now they're the sellers, they're not the takers. But I mean, you could wind up, getting traded somewhere that you don't like even more. And it was just to get the distraction out of the building because, it's so hard to win football games anyways and championships. Like I remember in Arizona, if we had a guy that was a huge distraction that really wasn't a big contributor, they were gone. And if the guy was even a big contributor, I was told hey, we got to find another backup. This person might wind up being disgruntled and we might lose him in free agency next year. So, that's our job as, personnel guys. You got to have the next man ready to come up and step up no matter who it is. If it's your number one receiver, number one quarterback, you got to have another, bullet in the gun. So therefore you can go to war and not lose the battle.
Well, we're going to monitor this Allen Robinson situation. We've got breaking news here on the state of football with Rick Serritella, John Murphy, David Turner. The announcement that we've all been waiting for and clamoring for. It seems like we've been discussing it for months. CBS Sports is breaking news just 2 minutes ago. Big Ten football will announce 2020 season will start October 24th with daily rapid testing. They will play an 8-game conference schedule. So that means the season will be wrapped up by the end of the calendar year. And essentially, they did a revote. At least 6 of the school presidents had to reverse their vote because initially it was 11-3. They would need at least 9 votes on the recount, which they apparently got. So a reverse in course here. We'll start off with the doctor, David Turner, because there was some medical concerns that seemed to be the most concerning issue, aside from the rapid testing, the long-term medical effects. But we talked about it on yesterday's show, David. I know you wanted to be tagged in. So here we are, October 24th, Big Ten will return.
And we see another mistake. So, for me, and again, it's how I make my living is football, and I love the game, and I love watching, football all the time. For 18 years, it's been what I do. It's my thing. But understand this. This comes on the heels of yesterday, Ed Orgeron saying the majority of his players have gotten COVID. He said it's run through his locker room. They've gotten COVID. And then 75 players at Texas Tech have tested positive for COVID. This is not a safe environment, young men and parents, and it's not something that we should take lightly. Are they surviving? Yes. Are they playing? Yes. But the virus is so young, we don't know long-term health concerns and effects. Let me ask you this question. You got a young, healthy son right now that is healthy and young and ready to go to life. And let's say 5 years from now, there's health concerns that pop up because of contracting COVID, and we didn't see it coming. Nobody knew about it. Are you going to look back and now try to claim money or go sue these universities for having them play? Are you going to file a suit and say, you know what, they shouldn't have forced them to play? I mean, we don't know. Again, we're jumping off cliffs through fog, and we can't see the bottom. And yet we're going to have a football season. We can't have classes. We can't have people on campus. We can't have in-person schooling. We can't have normal societal life. We can't go down to the store without a mask on. And when you put on college football this weekend, Florida State, their coaches look like they had bandanas on. They never had anything over their face. They're standing in the middle of a circle of players barking out orders and things, and we don't see social distancing. And even in the NFL, who I thought did a very good job of face coverings comparably to what we saw in college football, Troy Vincent, one of the head guys at the league office, puts out a memo to remind we got to do better at face coverings to be in accordance to local laws. The local governments can shut this down. Now, I understand the SEC and ACC are going, nobody's going to come down here and take football away from us. But guess what, guys? A local official can do it. Even other local businesses can file a petition to get you shut down because they can't go to work normally, and then they turn on TV and you don't have your face coverings on. You're not abiding by the law that is on the books for this pandemic. And the ego of it will ultimately be the end of it if it's anything, because the social distancing, the mask wearing is not being followed on the field. And guess what? It's on camera. We got visual evidence that you're not doing what you need to do in the local accordance of the laws. And again, for what I applaud as part of this, and I'm, it's breaking news, so I'm just saying this, is that there'll be rapid daily testing. Unlike the SEC right now, where now these players who tested positive, okay, they don't have to be tested for 90 days. Any player in the SEC's rules and way it goes, they do not have to be tested another 90 days. It's like, wait, what? We're going to let these players test positive, recover, and then 90 days they don't have to get tested again? Not 10 days later, not every 10 days or something, just to make sure they're not getting it back. But 90 days?
Well, I think the NCAA is recommending 3 tests per week for every school.
Recommending, but I'm saying SEC, when Ed Orgeron talked yesterday, one of the reporters stated it after he talked, 90 days now, and nobody has rebutted it from the SEC. Nobody's come out and said, whoa. No, we're going to have all our players are tested 3 times a week, or even now, like you see, Big Ten is coming out and they're doing rapid daily testing. Nobody from the SEC in the last 24 hours since Ed Orgeron's conversation or a discussion on this has come out and rebutted it. And I'm just like, again, as a parent, I'm like, wait a minute, my kid, when my kid can't, we've seen people get this again, and college campuses are the biggest incubating freaking place there is, and the rapidity of it spreading on college campuses is ridiculous how fast it's going. And you're going to say my kid, again, he got it, so now you're going to say he's immune, he's going to go play a football game, and then in the autopsy later we're going to find out that he had it again, and you let him play with it.
Well, I do like the daily testing. I think that's something that has not been kind of standardized or implemented with the other leagues. But we'll go over to John Murphy, who's down there in New Orleans where LSU plays, John. And this is something that we've talked about in the past. It's not something that where, all these guys got it at once. This is something that's happened over the course of time. And the flip side to this argument would be, hey, none of these guys experienced any kind of symptoms. Nobody had to be taken to the hospital. In fact, everybody's completely healthy and able to, go about their life. So there's a lot of division here with the COVID-19. Again, we're seeing reports now, hey, it's going to take 4 or 5 years for everybody to be able to get access to this vaccine. So do we just stop playing football until then, or do we try to coexist with this virus? You heard the doctor, David Turner, say this is the wrong decision. Right decision, wrong decision, Big Ten, and also where does the Pac-12 fall in line with the pecking order?
Yeah, I think we saw the Pac-12, try to say like, hey, our fast track and announcing, or at least having it rumored that they had made a deal with a testing formula or testing company, as part of their return to play idea or action. They're saying November at the earliest. Well, I'm still saying if something else comes around, like if you get, any kind of phase 2 or version 2 of this coming back around, how is that going to, work, with the teams that already started playing that are that many weeks in versus these guys starting in October, or the Pac-12 saying we're going to start in November? Clearly, we mentioned it yesterday. $450+ million is what the Pac-12 could have made. Cost about $50 million. Like you saw the quarterback at USC, Slovis made a really good point. USC as a whole and their conference could easily do all this testing if they want. The question is, do they believe that testing is enough to warrant moving forward and trying to play? I will also definitely bet that at worst, Michigan, Michigan State, and one or two others, if they knew the vote was going to go in the other direction, will still vote no to make sure the platform was there to say, hey, some of us didn't want to do this. Some of us were still kind of hesitant. And I don't think Harbaugh should unpack his khakis just yet because they may still not opt in and play. When you hear them say they're playing an 8-game schedule, that sort of stands out to me that did they make a decision to play based off of the information? And we talked about the financial implications. But did the Big Ten make a decision to say they were playing a shortened 8-game season? One reason for sure is for everybody to be bowl eligible and try to get them ranked, at a certain point in time, which is a whole other conversation because now we'll be ranking teams and throwing them in the mix as, as they play or as they get victories. But the other side of it is the reason that they're saying 8 games, does that have anything to do with the idea that they may not get everybody to play? They still may not get everyone to play. Nebraska and Iowa may be all in to play. Michigan and Michigan State and possibly even Maryland have had some reservations. We know the Schianos, the University of Schiano wants to play, and is ready to play. But I think that is a very interesting part, to that situation, is, you have all the way till now October 24th. And like I've said, now it's really going to be the next feature outside of the medical is on guys like Justin Fields and others who asked for this. And now are they going to want to really do it? And then I think that the thing that was not, and it's not the only thing that hasn't been properly explained publicly, all of this has not been explained properly publicly, is that what the SEC rule was, if you tested in a 90-day period of time and you passed and someone you were around. So if one of us took a test and we cleared and we're clear, and then one of the other two tested positive in a 90-day window, that means I don't have to go back again just because I was around one of you two and I've cleared. I don't have to quarantine. I don't have to do any of that unless I show any symptoms. So it's not that you don't have to take the test twice in 90 days. It's that if you've passed and you're around teammates or other people on the team and they then fail, as long as you are not showing any symptoms, it's not like the whole team would have to go into quarantine because one new guy tested positive if all the rest of them are still testing negative. So it gives you the reason to understand how LSU could say the majority of my guys, I think, have tested positive or have, had this go through, but yet how would you keep practicing or how could you continue having any kind of, interaction with each other if that was really the case? And I think the most interesting thing you're seeing is the more it looks like you're going to play, in some places, the easier it has become for guys to opt out. But at LSU, not only did Pharrell opt back in, but there's been heavy conversations on the campus that there's a chance that Shelvin is second-guessing his decision and might be of the thought that he can improve his draft status by actually playing rather than sitting out. Now, the question mark would be, is that because no one has stepped up and offered to pay for your training for 8 months and you're looking and sitting there, on campus and going, well, all right, well, I'm not going to get paid. I want to go to the draft. That's my full intention. But there's a chance now that, 2 out of the 4 guys that were major contributors, at LSU and thought to be major contributors could actually opt back in. And the third thing is a week ago, the all-conference DB from Nicholls State, who would have had to wait to the spring, opted to go through the portal and ends up at LSU to replace one of the DBs who opted out. So you are seeing the haves and the have-nots. There's definitely going to now be more levels to this if the Pac-12 or the Big Ten actually announce a return to play. You'll see some guys opt out. You may see some MAC transfers or others, try to go to Ohio State, right? Try to go to Nebraska, Iowa and others. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with that.
Well, Jamar Chase made his announcement official yesterday. He is opting out and declaring for the draft. We saw 2 Ohio State team captains already opt out. So Justin Fields, how bad do you want to play, is a good point there by John Murphy. It's the state of football here. Breaking news, weekdays, 9 a.m. Eastern. We're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on Periscope. And if you're following on Facebook or YouTube, you can chime in and leave a live comment. We will see it and we'll get to it. And we've got a comment coming in from Agent Cassidy, our good friend from Easton Sports. Dan Cassidy, of course, David Turner already knows I'm coming to him with this one because I'll preface this by saying I honestly don't know anybody personally, that's been impacted more by the COVID-19 than Dan Cassidy. From his family and friends, he's been severely hit by this virus, and he has kids in college. So his comment coming in is, hey, if students are on campus at the school and the school is open, he actually believes that the players are in a safer environment if they participate in a team activity, a team sport where you have this head coach as the leader telling the players, hey, we need to do our due diligence. We need to stay tested. We need to do quarantine. And to his point, David, now you're getting players who are tested daily instead of going off, wandering around on campus, going to the dorm parties, living the college life. Now they have a reason to stay disciplined, to get tested daily, and an obligation to their teammates and coaches. Hey, we've got something special going on here. We've got to stay safe. Any validity to that argument?
No. And here's why. Because we saw 75 players on Texas Tech test positive. We saw LSU talk about their program having the majority of them test positive. This isn't about fatalities. This is not about are they going to recover? Because I think all those answers are we understand young people recover and they're not being fatal, even though we saw a 20-year-old California PA defensive tackle lose his life to COVID just a week ago. Okay. So that's another situation where I say this is not a valid point where when we saw Notre Dame open up, Michigan State had to close campus again. UNC had to close it. We saw a sorority house that when they opened up the first week,
but they weren't doing the daily testing.
Again, daily testing is one thing, but getting the positive is what I'm trying to prevent. Okay. It's not about the daily testing. Daily testing.
Doesn't that help prevent?
I don't think we've seen it prevent anything so far. And I really don't think it's going to prevent again, because people are getting mass fatigue. We're tired of this. We're tired of that. We want to get back to life. Doesn't mean the pandemic's over. Just yesterday, we had 1,000 people die of COVID. Okay. 1,000 people dead. We have over 200,000 people dead, 6 million positives. I mean, this is not something to we're playing around for and saying, oh, they're better off in school doing their thing, because reality, guys, they're not. They're getting it no matter where they're at. This is not, it doesn't matter if you're rich, you're poor, you're in school, you're out of school. It doesn't matter if you're at the grocery store or, taking a walk around the block. People are catching it in all sorts of places. It's just, if you do daily testing, you're going to find out how many people really have it, and you're going to find out who's got it, which is great, because now those people can be monitored and track their progress from recovering from it, and their antibodies might do some, so the plasma might do some good in testing in recovery patients. But just because they're being tested doesn't mean that the environment's safe to play football in.
Well, I would say on the opposite end of the spectrum, there are programs out there who are doing it successfully. I look at Boston College as an example. They've conducted over 2,000 tests since training camp has started amongst the players and the staff. They've only reported one positive test. Over the course of a couple months, 2,000 tests conducted, one positive. And there's some other programs out there that are maintaining that discipline. John, so I'll go over to you. David disagrees with the point. John, there are some teams out there who are doing this successfully. to the point where, hey, if I'm being tested, if my son in football is being tested every day, I feel a lot better about that than him just kind of hanging out on campus.
Yeah, and I think the thing that you're saying is I think they're safer in certain times and aspects of it, right? If you're there, you have way more medical, if you're feeling anything, you are accessible, to quicker, a quicker test or a quicker going to the doctor or calling a trainer and things like that. What I'm saying, or in my thought, it has nothing to do with football. I'm telling you right now, 1,000%, if an 18 to 21-year-old version of myself was told that I'm on college campus and I am able to play football and I am getting tested daily, you will not have to worry about me during class. You would not have to worry about during practice. You would have to worry about, for sure, I will be at the nightly beer pong tournament. For sure, I will be running the streets, because you're giving a get-out-of-jail-free card to an 18 to 21-year-old. And it has been proven that it's not just the college football player, right? It's not just, the frat house. It's not just the sorority. It's any group of functioning people that are that age at the university, then in the dorms or off-campus housing. If you're getting daily testing, that sounds a lot like a get-out-of-jail-free card to go live a normal life. If we have regular testing to go to our jobs, you would feel comfortable that whatever the other person was doing next to you was okay, because it wouldn't matter if they then came in and tested negative before they were allowed back in the building. What we don't know is the things that David has said. We don't know that any of this stuff is 100%, right? We do not know that just because they've said this is how you acquire it, or you get a no test and that's cleared for 7 days or 5 days or 1 day or whatever. We don't know all of that to be true, but I would guess if we just blanketed and asked young people that are out of university, if you had daily testing that makes you believe that now you're more invincible than you already believed you were, are you not going to go try to live your everyday life? And it doesn't have to be about jokingly saying, I'm back at the beer pong tournament, which I would be, but it has everything to do with just saying they're going to go sit in the cafeteria. They're going to go sit in the quad. They're going to go back to the library, right? They're going to go, sit in their dorm rooms and do stuff. They're not all going back and playing, World of Warcraft on their computer, right? They're not all going back, and just, self-quarantining, all the time. So have those guys done a better job? Yes. But just look at all the testing and the things that have happened in the pro sports. You still had two guys willing to, with a winning team that was in first place, you still had two baseball players willing to go out to dinner. You still had a guy in the NBA bubble willing to go get stripper wings. You still had a guy in the NBA bubble who was willing to hit on the girl who was giving him the test and invited her to give him multiple tests in the same day. So what do you think is going to happen if you open it up? It's not saying that Boston College isn't doing a good job or that they're in the right place with their minds and their hearts and their pockets more than anything. But can you really put that expectation? Like, you're still putting a whole lot of expectation and responsibility on 18 to 20-year-old student athletes to do all this stuff the right way so the bottom line gets fed. I mean, that's the part. We can keep talking about all the other parts, and God bless to, Daniel Cassidy and his friends and family and anybody that's been affected by this. Don't ever get distracted. Don't let the COVID distract you from the factor that the number one thing being fed here are people's pockets. Because the only reason we're trying to play is to feed people's pockets. Now, is it keeping the university open, keeping the lights on, the janitor paid, and everything else? Yes. But at the end of the day, the entire reason to go re-vote less than a month after voting was because your vote turned out to be as unpopular as Trump's wall.
Well said.
Well, okay, let me rephrase it this way then, because here's what I do know.
You don't try to rephrase it to get a different answer.
Well, I'm not looking for a different answer. What I'm asking is this.
Samantha, you have just say I do. Well, just say maybe, and you took the answer as yes. Okay, that's gonna work here.
Well, let me rephrase it this way. Here's what I do know.
Second try.
Here's what I do know. This virus isn't going anywhere. And I do know this. If you play in spring, I don't think it's going to be any different than what it is right now. And so my question, and I'll start it off with the doctor. What you're saying is we should not play college football. And so when the next season rolls around next year and we're in the same situation, should we not continue to play college football? And if we're unable to vaccine people for 3, 4, 5 years, should we just shut down college sports for the next 5 years until we have an answer or a solution? Because what happens when next September rolls around and we don't have any other solutions? We don't have really any other information, because what you're saying is the long-term effects, we won't know, maybe for a decade or two. So, David, what does college sports do if you're saying, hey, we've got to stand down, we don't know the long-term effects, we've got daily testing, we've got all the protocol in place to see that it can work effectively in different sports. It is working in other sports, right? It is being executed. So what is the solution then? What is the answer to the problem here? If we can't play college sports, when do we turn the lights back on?
Would it be that tragic if the answer was put our kids' lives ahead of college sports for the next 5 years even? Like, is it that tragic? Is it that tragic that we say, hey, listen?
Because one college player died? I mean, listen, it's unfortunate. We've had one guy die, but we're going to shut it down for 5 years?
It's not because one guy died. It's because we don't know the long-term health effects that this disease has on the human body. At any age and at any time, we don't know long-term effects. We are 8 months into knowing about this disease, the president a little longer. But for us, the general public, I didn't hear about COVID until probably February. And, we were out at the NFLPA Bowl, and we didn't know about this thing called COVID. And it was already it was already out there. We weren't social distancing. We were hanging out, drinking beers, hugging each other up. We were out in Hawaii at the Hula Bowl doing our thing. And we didn't know it was going through the country yet. We had no idea. We don't know the long-term effects, Rick. So my whole point, and again, if you pull any of my clips from this show or any of my shows, it's we don't know the long-term effects because it's so young. This disease, this virus, I should say, and how it affects the bodies, we don't know. And again, quit calling them student athletes. These guys aren't student athletes. These guys they're professional athletes, because now all that changed the vote was that there was 2 weeks of some football being played. The administrators saw the dollars going in other people's pockets, and now they want those dollars in their pockets. This isn't about returning culture to life, or life to culture, and getting us back to normal, some kind of normal. Why? Because we don't have kids on campus. We don't have our businesses back. Mom and pop shop down the street is still closing.
Well, some campuses are open.
Full capacity.
In session.
I know in Arizona State we don't have full capacity of students on campus, in dorm rooms and all that stuff. Okay, I think that in most when they do open up, like we've seen people have to dial it back or postpone and do things, because again, it's just an infectious disease. And again, to put our children at risk so people can go back to work and or be able to have a relief of the stress that we're all feeling right now and put it on TV, you're putting people's lives in danger. Okay? You're putting people – I saw a commentator the other night who talked about the president's rallies being, completely negligent with all the facts that we have and we know right now, and having these rallies where people don't have masks on and stuff, and any kind of mass gathering is a negligence. Well, once you start using the word negligence and people die, that becomes negligent homicide. Okay? So if you're going to tell me just because one player died, well, that's negligent homicide. If you go and now have a college football season, your guy tested negative, but then he dies 3 days later on the field, and it turned out he had COVID and he was in between his testing period. If it's not daily, if it's daily, it's different, Rick. But if it's not daily, now all of a sudden, boom, that's negligent homicide, because there's enough information out there right now that it is a public health risk, and it's a risk that people don't need to take. And you're putting them you're giving them a situation to put themselves in danger. And that's not appropriate for anybody in a leadership position right now to be doing to 18 to 21-year-old males. We had Armonte Edwards on our podcast just last week, and he said this, as a professional athlete, his answer to playing right now is a lot different than what he would have done in college. He went and talked about Appalachian State days. He said, I would be on the field playing, proving that I can get through this. But now as a man with kids and a wife, I'm not playing. I'm not putting a helmet on, because I know if I put that helmet on, I'm putting my ability to provide for my family and my health at risk to the point where I'm not comfortable. So I'm staying off the field until we figure this out. So again, you're talking about two different mindsets, and we're not protecting the kids that are, like, again, bulletproof, right, John? That, I mean, you could tell me, oh, you're going to get it, but you'll survive. Oh, so it is like the flu. Cool. I'm going out tonight. I'm hanging out. And you say, well, you're going to get tested in the morning. Yeah, but, I'm good. I mean, all these people I'm hanging out with get tested every day. I'm hanging out with the football team and their girlfriends. I mean, we're good. We're being responsible. We're wearing our masks. And then all of a sudden you walk into a locker room and on the next daily test, and again, 5-6 people test positive. Then again, they go back out, another 5 or 6 people. It's just asking for trouble in my mind. And I'm not just trying to be an alarmist, and I'm not just trying to be a person that is on here all the time saying, hey, slow it down. But that's truly how I feel. I feel we're trying to rush back with a virus we don't know much about, and we're throwing people into situations that are unnecessary right now to get the normalcy of our lives back. Does not always include sports. And like Armonte said, once you put sports back on TV and starts going, people start forgetting about the rest of the issues, whether they be social issues, whether they be the injustice issues, whether they be anything else. Because then, you know what? It just gives us sports to talk about, and we can go and talk about how, the Jacksonville Jaguars screwed up cutting their roster, but the Colts still lost to them. And we can go talk about, the push-off calls in the NFL, and we're stopped talking about what really matters, which is 1,000 Americans died yesterday.
Well, normalcy, I don't know if we're ever going to see what we consider normalcy, right? You hear the phrase new normal, but at the end of the day, and listen, I am just trying to provide opposite point of views here.
Oh, I know.
The bottom line is football is a game of risk, right? So you can go out and become paralyzed on any given play. And America's supposed to be land of the free. You should have the choice. If these guys want to play, they should be able to play. And, I think that players are saying, hey, well, these guys are playing. We haven't seen anything tragic happen. Jermaine Stevens died, but was he even playing football? I see somebody in the chat room saying they weren't even playing at Cal Poly. So again, he was just on campus, not being tested, not in a safe, conducive atmosphere, which could have led to his cause of death. Would that have changed if he was being tested daily? If he was in a program where, hey, we're going to stay united and stay together and stay safe and be obligated to our teammates? I'm just saying it's a risk. The game of football is a risk. So, John, I mean, listen, David's willing to shut down college sports for 5 years, 10 years, whatever it takes. I mean, hey, when do we get back to saying, hey, we're going to play college sports? We might not know the long-term effects for at least 10 years. Are we just going to shut down college sports until 2030?
I mean, I'm okay with that if they all want to come to Toronto.
Well, we know that.
Probably selfish answer. But I guess that's the selfish answer. A few of them could go somewhere else, but like I think the bigger thing is, when you look at it, the layers, right? That's the biggest thing, is in those layers of things. They may or may not have been playing. They were at least on campus or practicing or, whatever they were doing, even if he was just living his life as a normal student athlete in that period of time. When you get the information that he's passed, and then, upon autopsy, he, formed a blood clot, that is likely related to having tested positive, for it. And that now, they'll have to go back and do, further research to see if he had any kind of underlying or anything that was in his, past medical that would have led you to know all those answers. The problem is, I think if you're going to play, you're not going to only have to change the optics of the testing, and those things. You're going to have to change the entire optic, of saying, what kind of medical and what kind of things are you allowing to allow players in all sports, collegiately to be able to be seen as fit to play. Because you allow a lot of things and a lot of people to play. There's a lot of guys playing all sports with inhalers and, past issues and things that they've overcome and done. Is that, where that's become the norm. And we always hear this great story, of guys, whether it be the kid on Minnesota Holding or, the kid at USC, that played and, other guys that have overcome certain, elements of medical past, history in order to get on the field in college football. Is that part of it going to have to get eradicated based on the factor that anybody with an underlying issue, that's going to be a problem. I can't see how you could then allow as a university to allow anybody that comes in that has a medical with underlying issues to be able to play a college sport. If you're going to say, well, the testing is there, but the testing is only going to be for COVID. We don't know, that, would a perfectly healthy Jermaine Stevens Jr. reacted differently? Did he have anything that made him susceptible once he got this to then form this blood clot or have a secondary issue? I think those are the things that would be concerning, to me, as a university or as somebody that would be in charge, of one of those teams. To me, if that was the case with the Argos, I would have to say that anybody that had an underlying issue that could make them a higher risk, we would have to disqualify. And that'll become a very interesting debate, I think, behind the scenes. And if you're going to clear everybody to play, how clear are you going to have to be in order to pass the initial medical to then be qualified to play?
Well, we're here on the State of Football. Breaking news: Big Ten announces the return to football, 8-game schedule. They will return October 23rd. They'll play an 8-game schedule with a conference championship, upwards of $1 billion close to being lost here if they did not play. Justin Fields, who was behind that online petition, I just saw his petition generated over 300,000 signatures. So the people want to play. They have the choice to opt out if they feel unsafe. This is moving forward. The Pac-12, the ball is in your court. We're winding down here. Final take on the whole Big Ten news here. David Turner, parting shot.
Well, again, you're never going to stop the train. It's always going to be moving. That's just the way it goes. How it moves is where you can just you really can hopefully influence it. I hopefully, I'm not influencing anything. I'm sitting here and, talking on a radio show, and that's what I do.
Well, maybe somebody's listening that has influence power. Maybe they're listening to what you're saying, David.
And what I would hope they would hear is that as a parent and as a man, I just think we're not putting our kids' health first. I think we're putting our economics and our bank books ahead of the risks that we're asking them to take, because contracting the disease isn't just about surviving it. It's knowing what it's going to do down the line to our bodies and to these young people's bodies. And we just don't know that. So I hope they hear that. And I hope they want to make a change to, put lives first versus, just let's run back. Everybody's overreacting. This is crazy. No, it's not, because 1,000 Americans died yesterday. So it's not a crazy thing. People are dying from it, no matter what your age is. And the contraction rate amongst young people, because they don't social distance as well as older people, because of mindset, and their fear level isn't where it should be, to be honest with you, of contracting it, that we're just seeing it last longer in our country. We're seeing it run further in our country, and we're seeing how our country is leading the world in deaths and cases when it doesn't really need to be. We're smart enough, we have enough money to where it's the richest country the world's ever known, and we could put a lot of money behind testing. We could put a lot of money behind social distancing and get things done the right way. And we're choosing just to run back to sports and run back to life. And I just think it's wrong. But as far as like Pac-12, I think eventually the pressure of the other two or the other four conferences making money is going to make them open up too, and I think we'll just have more and more people coming back to the fold, trying to find normal, when, again, in my opinion, it's being rushed.
Winding things down here on the state of football, we're going to get a parting shot from John Murphy. Before we do, can't forget about my guy Jeff Ember in the chat room. We got your question covered, brother. The question is, how does the opt-out of a player affect his draft status? And there's no single answer that applies across the board. It's literally a case-by-case issue. Depending on who you are, what your body of work is, the program you played at. John mentioned the defensive tackle, Tyler Shelvin, whose grades kind of fluctuate right now. Some people think he could be a late round 1 guy. Some people maybe day 2, day 3. Whereas the wide receiver, Jamar Chase, he's the consensus number 1 wide receiver prospect. He's got nothing left to prove. I surveyed probably about a dozen wide receivers at the combine cornerbacks at the combine. I asked them, who's the toughest wide receiver you faced in your career? It was unanimous. Jamar Chase, Jamar Chase, Jamar Chase. So, nothing that man can do on a college playing field is going to help boost his draft stock. He's a top 10 pick. A guy like Tyler Shelvin can come in, play well, solidify his draft stock. And if you're a small school guy, you've got everything to gain. You've got everything to gain if you're a small school guy, because the odds are just stacked up against you. And so it's literally a case-by-case decision based on, what your body of work is, what you can prove, and really the view of guys like the NFL advisory board, right? So there's no consensus answer there. Hopefully that helps answer the question, Jeffember. John, if you want to clarify anything that I said. Also here, parting shot on the Big Ten. Where does the Pac-12 go? I have a feeling we might still continue this conversation tomorrow.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, the vote when it comes down, and are they a little more public, this time, since that was the other thing that the parents, and public and media came out strong against the Big Ten, was not being public with their responses and answers. So it'll be interesting to see what the vote is and how that vote with the members or team presidents of the Big Ten, who clearly have relationships with those other team presidents across the country. Will you see that trend, right? If Michigan and Michigan State voted against it, both team presidents, what is their background? Medical. So will you see a similar thing happen in the Pac-12, where there'll be some people that are, maybe pro wanting to get the money, but they also want to be on the right side of things if it goes the wrong way? And what will that vote be? And if they decide to start and play, does the Pac-12 do the same thing? Try to kick off a week after, maybe do a November 1st kickoff and try to get in 7 or 8 games, or, as many as they can before the end of the calendar year, because they are then putting the NCAA in the position of saying, if everyone's going to try to play for the most part, well, then they may have to back up the playoff, scenario, or the dates, of the bowl games and things like that. Final point, totally off football. We all that spend any time involved with the NFL or covering the NFL draft have our yearly voyage down to the Gulf South and to Mobile. So even though this storm avoided, I'm 3 for 3, knock on wood that, one's gone to the left, one gone to the right. But don't forget, if you want to take a pause for the cause, turn on the Weather Channel. If you turned us on for 60 minutes, turn on the Weather Channel for 60 seconds and see that, we know what the people out there in the West Coast are dealing with. We see it every day. We now know that there's another whole assortment of people that are going to be waking up in the next days and weeks and probably months to come that'll be dealing with, 30 to 36 inches of water in a 24-hour, period of time. That's not going to make for, a good setting or a good result no matter where it is. But, when you look at the areas that we've all been to, Mobile, Pensacola is one of the main areas that a lot of teams fly into, Mobile, Gulfport, and all that will be severely affected. This on there, check that out. And, when they do start listing things for help or optics of things you could do, definitely jump on. We thank you for supporting our show and watching, but, there's always other things that are a little more important, and that's definitely one of them. So all the folks down in Mobile, we look forward to seeing you in January, and hopefully the power's back on by then too.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, hey, thoughts and prayers to all the people down in the Southeast region, that Gulf region, Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, all you guys. We hope for the best. 2020 has been a whirlwind. When they go and write the history books on this year, they're going to need not just a chapter, they're going to need a book on 2020 for the lessons to be learned here. And, it's been an enlightening conversation. I can't thank these two men enough for shedding some great perspective here. And, we're going to be back at it again tomorrow with the brand new edition. We also have the offensive line scouting seminar with Bob Wiley and Brian Baldinger tonight. Just, an outstanding duo of offensive line minds. Baldinger, of course, played a decade in the NFL as an offensive lineman. Coach Bob Wiley has just taught it for the past 45 years. Yeah. And, Dakota will attest to this. They had a walkthrough on Saturday, and just the knowledge that was spewed there. I can't wait to see the plays they cover tonight. I can't wait to dive into a brand new broadcast of the Maverick Sports Podcast, which debuts again today. I think, what is this, episode 4, David, now?
No, we're up to Big 6, baby.
Oh,
Big
man.
6.
Time flies.
Time flies, baby. We're at Big 6. It was a great show. I can't wait for everybody to get the response from everybody, because we really dived into a lot of sports last night, got a lot of different perspectives, and really tackled college football and NFL at the end. So it was great. It was Ryan and I at our best.
And for all you other football junkies out there who want to continue to learn, hey, special teams is 1/3 of the game. And we've got a special teams scouting seminar on Friday. Make sure you sign up for that. Of course, NFLDraftBible.com for all of our online scouting seminars. The 2021 NFL Draft Bible is available right now. Did you know that? Go there, sign up, register, get access. 300 scouting reports in the can already. And we will be back tomorrow here at NFL Draft Bible, streaming live on YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, Twitter, for my all-star panel, the Doctor, David Turner, Maverick Sports, John Murphy of New Orleans fame down there, and Rick Serritella here in New Jersey. We will catch you tomorrow, everybody.